Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to install and optimize your SSD and configure it correctly on Windows 10 and Windows 7 who is still using it. First of all, I want to tell you that there are more different kinds of SSDs. For example, I'm going to show you some pictures. What you see here, this is a solid state drive, 2.5 inches, is mainly used in laptops because the hard drives of the laptops are usually 2.5 inches, and under it, that's an M.2 SSD, which is the next generation of SSDs, which are faster and usually occupy less space and more reliable. The M.2 SSDs are, in their own right, different kinds. And I'll show you. If you look here, you have three types basically of SSDs of M.2. You have one with M key and B key, which are usually SATA drives. What does what this means is that your SSDs will run only on how fast your SATA connector can go. What does that mean? It usually reaches about 500 to 580 megabytes per second. That's the biggest speed they can achieve. The next generation are the PCI Express NVMe SSDs with an M key. These are basically the fastest SSDs available on the market. They can go up to 3.5 gigabytes per second on read speeds and 0.5 gigabytes per second on write speeds. These are the best SSDs on the market. Their only downfall is the fact that they get hot. So if you're using it in a badly ventilated environment, you could have problems with it. But usually laptops are designed to filter out the air if they are cleaned. And in desktops, in modern desktops, you have an M.2 key on your motherboard. And usually they are pretty ventilated and you won't have any issues. But if you have issues, you can always buy thermal, basically heat sinks made by third-party manufacturers, and you can just slap them on and it will dissipate the heat from the SSD. And of course, finally we have the PCI Express ASCII SSD, which are almost as good as an NVMe, but slightly slower speeds. So if you have a modern laptop, you definitely have a PCI Express NVMe key. I'm talking about laptops over $500, but there have been exceptions with laptops under $500 that have this key, and you can install an SSD or come pre-installed with an SSD like this. The advantages are the speeds and of course the reliability. First of all, in order to maximize the performance of your SSD, you'd have to go to BIOS and enable ASCII. What does ASCII? I'm going to show you. This is a picture I took over the internet. If you look here, you have some configuration regarding the SATA. Usually laptops have this kind of BIOS. You would have to go into the storage configuration or advanced and go to SATA configuration and set it to AHCI. So AHCI, Advanced Host Controller Interface, basically gives the option to update to enable faster speeds on the SSD. If you're going to use EDE, that means your SSD will not perform as commercial. So it will run slower, maybe have slowdowns or things like that. So I recommend you go to AHCI into your BIOS and set it up. It depends on BIOS to BIOS, so I'm not going to show you how, but you get the point. So go into your BIOS. You usually, when you start your laptop or PC, press the delete key or F10 key, and it will go into the BIOS, go into the storage options or SATA configuration, depends on the BIOS, and set it up before installing the operating system on the SSD. If you are unsure how to do that, I'll help you and make a guide for it. Now, let me show you some tricks that you need to basically configure the SSD perfectly. So it won't have slowdowns, it will have a better reliability over time. What the first thing you need to do is enable trim. Trim is a way the operating system communicates with the SSD and that and tells the operating system when a chunk of data, basically garbage collection, is no longer needed by the operating system. If it's not functioning correctly, then your SSD will basically collect garbage data and store up data that are not necessary for running your PC or laptop. What you need to do is go to Start. Depending on Windows, I have a Windows 10. Right click. You would have either Windows PowerShell with admin rights, or you will have something like command prompt with admin. I'm gonna hit that. You'll pop up this window. What you need to write is fsutil behavior query disable delete notify and hit enter. As you can see, it says 0. So what does that mean? When it returns 0, that trim is running and you're okay. If it returns 1, then all you have to do is go back and type 0 at the end. So you're gonna basically set it up to 0. If you can see. Okay, so the second thing is that a lot of people do back in the old days when the HDDs were, well, a thing, people used to defragment the hard drive. What defragment did was basically move most used data in front of the hard drive so that the operating system could, well, find it faster and have better loading times on your hard drive. With the SSDs, it is not recommended. So if you don't know how to do that, I'm gonna show you. It's pretty easy and it will take you like 2 minutes. What you need to do is hit run and type dfrgui and hit OK. To open run, you just hit Windows key and R. Okay, as you can see here, I, the media type, it says solid state drive, hard drive, solid state drive. See, I can analyze some of it. But if you're looking, I have it everything off. So look, everything is off, 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 off. Even at hard drive, because you don't need to. So this is basically an optimization, what it says here, that Windows does, but I recommend you disable it because you are running the SSD through its whole memory, and the NAND memory of the SSDs are prone to fail over time. It's the memory being volatile and it's basically electronic. It will die at some point. Not then the fact that it will or will not, the fact when it will die. So I recommend you go that and do that. If you're not able to have this screen, then what you need to do is go into command, basically right click, hit Windows admin, open up the screen again, and type power dfg -h off. That's it. That's it. You will disable basically hibernation. Hibernation is not recommended running on an SSD because it will, when you hit hibernate on an SSD, all the data from that exact session, if you have games running or I don't know, a browser or something like that, it will get stored on the SSD. So, sure, it will load a lot faster when you power up your PC or laptop again, but it will wear the memory of the SSD. So I recommend against it. If you don't know how to disable um, hibernation, you can always go to the power options. I'll show you that. Hit start, type control panel, go to the power options. If you see here, I have set to high performance. Hit change plan, advanced, and scroll down and see what you got. I got sleep. I got sleep disabled. On laptops, you should see here a hibernation option. I don't have it because I'm running a desktop. So I can enable it if I want to. I can force it the PC, but I won't do it. See, everything is set to maximum performance. Nothing is set, and even the hard drives are disabled. Okay, now what you need to do second is disable the indexing service. What does, how do you do that? Very easy. You go to your PC, right click the hard drive, for example, C in my case, hit properties. Have here allow files to have contents index. That will be ticked by default by Windows. I recommend you untick this. The thing is the fact that it will ask you and say it will give some warnings regarding that it cannot not index some files. Just hate those files are basically the page file system and some files that Windows is permanently using in the background. So, but everything else it will be disabled. It will take some time depending on the speed of your SSD and how much data is stored on the drive. But I recommend if you do it fresh, it will take you about a minute after you install Windows on it. Okay, now what you need to do is enable write caching. What do you do? You hit PC or my computer, hit properties, and you have this thing here. You hit device manager, right? It will show you your disk drives here. See, I have a lot of disk drives. And we're gonna take one for example. Let's take the Evo. I think this is one. This one is my D drive. Okay, you hit policies, and you have here enable write caching on device. It improves system performance. If it's not ticked, tick it. Don't forget to click that and enable it. And more importantly, do not click this turn off Windows write cache buffer flushing. It will basically slow down and encrypt your computer. The file systems and important data stored on this drive risk of having external interruption like power failures or I don't know, something like that. Something happens and you get a black screen or something like that. So I recommend unticking this and clicking only enable write caching and hit OK. So that's it. Nothing more. What else you can do? You can optimize your page file system. And I'll show you. In advanced, you have system properties here, right? You can hit settings on advanced, advanced, and here you have the paging file. If you if you look at mine, it's automatically managed by Windows. But you can set it up and free some space from your SSD. If you untick this, it will allow you, if you see, it's system manage. So basically Windows allocated to about okay 4 gig, let's say 5 gigabytes of storage, but it's just temporarily. It's moving back and forth. If you don't want to set it on your SSD, and if you have a secondary drive or third drive, you just hit no paging file, set it, go to the other drive, system manage, and basically and you'll have to restart, of course. And basically Windows, it will move the paging files on your secondary drive. I'm not gonna do that because, well, the I do not store so much on the C drive, and but for people who are low on space, I recommend you moving that page file to a secondary system and just hit OK. See, it says to restart. I'm not gonna restart now. Okay, cancel. Now, what else you can do? Startup and recovery. Hit settings. If see it's ticked Windows 10. Sometimes you have this ticked time to display. I recommend deselecting this and leaving it basically to 0 seconds. So if you have 2 or more operating systems installed and you tick this, see, it will take, let's say, 5 seconds. Okay? And when when you hit power button, it will wait 5 seconds for you to choose the operating system you want to boot on. Let's say you have Windows 10 on one partition and Linux on a second one. But if you untick this, it will go straight to the I only have Windows 10. So you will have more options here. If you tick Linux, for example, it will basically boot into Linux first, and then it will boot into Windows 10. Okay. Now, what you need to do is sometimes I don't, but sometimes you'll need to turn off system restore. Okay, later. Let me show you again. How to turn off system restore. You right click your PC, hit properties, go to system protection, and if you look here, I have it all off, except for the file system. If you want to disable it, click the drive in question, hit configure, and hit disable. If you see here, I have I have it set for 4%. Windows did. I didn't change anything here. So if you don't want the system protection enabled on your SSD, you can always disable it. Disabling it basically frees up space, except especially needed on low SSDs like 120 gigabytes or I don't know, even 240 gigabytes. So that's the thing. If you don't have space, sure, you can crank up some space from here. If you can see, I've got 8.2 gigabytes used by Windows, basically. But the good thing is, if you want to return to a certain point at your PC, so let's say you install some software and you want to go back because, well, maybe it breaks something on your operating system, you can always go back to a certain point, let's say before installing that program, and you can return the Windows, let's say 2 for 1 week ago or something like that. That's the only, that's why I have it enabled. Because if I do something stupid, I can always turn back. And like system restore. See, it's it's asking me. See, the last thing I installed is a fax utility. Basically, I installed my driver for my printer. So Windows remembered that, and it's telling me I can go back to that point, but I won't. So I'll just hit OK and exit here. Especially on laptops, do not forget, go to your power settings. So click Control Panel, right? Go to your power settings and always set to high performance. If you want to make individual settings to your performance regarding power, just hit Change Plan and Change Advanced. And here you can tweak it however you like. Hard drives, especially on laptops. You'll have more options here. I recommend using maximum performance all the time, but your battery will take a hit if you're running high performance even on your battery. So what you want to do is balance it some way, or I mean, if you either use your laptop on the go a lot, I recommend you hitting balanced, because if you're not playing or something like that. But if you're in our office and your laptop is plugged in, I recommend using high performance all the time. And of course, you'll have power saver. When you hit power saver on a laptop, basically your laptop's tunes down. The CPU is not running at maximum performance, the GPU is not running on maximum performance. It's a setting for optimization of the battery. So what you need to do, if hit power saver when, let's say, you know you won't reach a socket for like 1 or 2 hours and you need to work on your laptop on the go and you have no power source, yeah, you can hit power saver. And when you hit power saver, usually on laptops, the brightness of the screen tunes down, everything is slowing down. You'll have much less performance, but you'll get much better battery life. So, this is all the tricks I can recommend to you. I'm using them. I mean, the thing is, at some SSDs, they are required. On some SSDs, they are not required. What would you do? Well, the SSD is, I think, the laptop's best friend. Not the RAM, not the CPU, not the GPU, the SSD. Why? I'm gonna tell you why. Because you'll get better loading times everywhere. Even on an old laptop with an SSD installed, it will feel fresh. It will feel fast. Because the Windows 10 basically boots in about, let's say, 10 to 15 seconds on an SSD. And on typical SSDs like the 2.51, I'm gonna this model, the Windows 10 boots in about 10 to 15 seconds on this kind of drive. It will boot in like 5 seconds on this kind of drive on M2. So the performance is way, way, way better than a typical hard drive. A hard drive usually takes about 1 minute, maybe even more, especially on laptops, because the laptop's hard drive are not usually on 7,200 RPMs. They are slower, usually on 5,400 RPMs. What does that mean is manufacturers make them that way because they have a problem with heat. If they are hard drives with 7.2K RPMs, but the thing is, they will get hot. There is a risk of failure in a shorter period of time than the 5.4K RPMs. But you'll get better performance, but risk of losing data on 7.2. So if you're losing a laptop, the SSD, a 2.51, this one, is greatly recommended. It doesn't really matter the manufacturer. Samsung is just an example here. So you can use any type of manufacturer. Just you'll see if it has over 300 to 400 megabytes per second, that means it's at least 3 to 4 times faster than a typical hard drive laptop. So I would recommend, if you want to upgrade, the first thing you want to upgrade in your laptop is the drive. Then you can go and look at RAM if you need RAM, like Photoshop or editing. And for gaming, that's another story because, well, it depends a lot on the GPU of the laptop. So if you don't have a powerful laptop, so it's, let's say, a budget laptop or an office designed laptop, well, that's not good for gaming. So, but you can improve the speed and performance by attaching an SSD to your drive. Well, I hope you guys liked it. I'm gonna make more. Just test. Some friends recommended that I do this. So I'll see you guys in the next time, and hope if you have any question, just don't forget, hit me up. See ya.